We are live. Awesome. That usually takes a second. It's ready. It's ready.
Last
Hello,
week you
welcome
had an angry
everyone.
face. This week's a surprise face.
Welcome everyone. This is our last live stream before January until January. So yeah, Santa's coming a little early today. But yeah, welcome. We have a lot packed, so I will hand it over to Eric.
Okay. Yeah, excited. Okay, we've got this is like the second week in a row where we've got a person from the not the Stacklets Inc. core team here. And last week we had Cole on, who's created the open source fork of Bolt. That's now Bolt.diy. This week we've got a very, very special guest. I think a lot of you in the community have probably seen this fellow around building some pretty cool stuff. And that is Jay. So Jay, we're super excited to have you here, man.
What's up?
Hell yeah. And so, I think maybe just kind of kick things off. I mean, I'm kind of curious. So this is actually like the first time I have ever chatted with Jay, like live. So I think I'm probably speaking on behalf of like most people online with the questions I'm going to ask. Like, I'm just curious to hear more about your story and like your background, man. Like you've been making a lot of content on like building apps with Bolt and, and they're kind of the legendary, tweet that you posted, like you made a micro app with Bolt and sold it for $3,000. So I want to hear about all of that. But like, how did you like get into, how did you kind of run across Bolt? And like, what were you kind of doing before that? Just kind of, what's the story of your life, basically?
Yeah,
I'm really curious.
sure. Yeah. So kind of how this all led to Bolt. I used to work at ClickFunnels, so I don't know if you guys know what that is, but essentially it's like you could basically say landing page builder. And that kind of got me into the world of marketing automation. So I used to work with a lot of copywriters and just people who like Tony Robbins, like seeing all their funnels. And this is kind of marketing, like geeky stuff, but being able to see that and see how it operated under the hood allowed me to really see marketing from a different perspective, which was how to use tools like Make, Zapier, and then all these other marketing tools. And around the time of ChatGPT came around, which was 2 years ago or so, I started a company called Best of AI, which is essentially a database of just all different AI tools. So I would create content on these different tools, and eventually we grew our TikTok to like 100,000 followers, Instagram's like 70,000, and we were just communicating with the audience on all these cool AI tools that were coming out. So obviously I have a pulse on all these different AI tools, and Bolt obviously is fairly new, but I've had a pulse of like, okay, AI coding, like what can this do? Personally, I'm not a coder. I don't know how to code. I like to kind of change that framework from coder to developer, or sorry, builder. And that's kind of the mindset I have right now, is like I'm building things because I have a lot of ideas. And yeah, those AI coding tools about a year ago, I think Devin premiered like a video or something. I'm like, oh, that's cool. But then when Bolt came around, I was like, okay, let me try this out. And the reason why I like Bolt is because it's visual, and I'm very visual. So I can say, hey, change this to a different color, or make this operate a certain way, without having to know technically how to code. And that just opens a whole new world for people like me who want to build tools and build ideas, but don't necessarily have time or really the resources to learn how to code. And with Bull, to answer your original questions, like how did I get into it? Like I said, I have a pulse on it, but when I find something really cool that I think is going to change the world, which I think Bolt and tools like Bolt are going to, I like to go deep in it. So although Bolt is very new, I spend hours, right? Like I'm spending all of my time essentially building inside of Bolt, which allows me to not only familiarize myself with the tool, but then create content and learn alongside an audience, which is why I can create tweets. And then, you guys see it and it's like, oh, wow, like this is novel. These are novel ideas. And I like to push the limits. So taking the skill set of my marketing automation side, which is where I learned, years ago, and then combining it with this new way of creating ideas and then marrying them. And then obviously I made that tweet and people kind of resonated with it. And now if you go on YouTube, you see so many videos saying, hey, I like using Bolt and make.com to build a app, right? But that one tweet essentially, changed the perspective of so many people just like me who want to build these tools, want to build apps, but don't know how. And Bolt is allowing people like me to do so.
That's nuts. And so like, so before you were using Bolt, I mean, you know, were you doing like any software development? And like, I mean, and to what degree are you writing code in Bolt versus like prompting, just out of curiosity?
Yeah. So I think right now with AI, it's the best teacher. So if I don't know something and I'm just like, basically I'm throwing myself into the deep end essentially here, right? I have messed around, to be fair and to be clear, I have messed around with coding and like trying to familiarize myself with CSS and HTML and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure everyone has a story like that. And then I went to no code. So then I was starting using Bubble. And then I used from Bubble, I went into Webflow. I learned Webflow. From Webflow, learned Toddle. And then Toddle was what really kind of connected the dots for me because Toddle is a front end builder. And you have to manually create things, but it did kind of introduce me to, okay, this is what an API is, and this is the front end, right? And then you have to click a button and make an API call. So I was using no code API builders like FastGen, BuildShip, which is similar to like Make in a sense, in a way. But yeah, I built a app in Toddle with all these different components that I learned, and using AI to teach me. Like literally spent a month. Luckily, I had the resources to do this, but I literally spent a month to just build this app for a program that I was building. And essentially, it was a course teaching people how to do AI freelancing. And I had a tool to accompany the course, which is where we could get into this later. But I think there's going to be a shift of tools being a core component of how people sell things. And if you're able to, like me, who may not come from a world of development or like software, but if you're able to build these tools to accompany and add value to what you're selling, that's like major, like huge. And that's kind of, we can get into like the app that I built and how I sold it. And, you know, but that's the shift I'm seeing right now in the marketplace of people who are selling courses or information. You can build tools alongside that, which is very high value to the person who's buying that particular program or service.
So, Jay, something you mentioned in there that really jumped out to me and that I think is relevant for a lot of new Bolt users is you kind of talked about educating yourselves on the tools, right? And you know, obviously you've been in this space for a while, so you've gone through multiple iterations of older tools. Now, obviously, we've got these, you know, large language models that can help you in the education process. But could you talk a little more about kind of your mindset on learning a new tool and how a new user should approach that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's funny because a lot of people ask me this is like, I don't know if this is, I believe everyone has a superpower. Like everyone has their own thing, right? For me, I'm able to go into something and just study it and understand it and then ask questions. A lot of it is asking the right questions. And before LLMs, like you would have to find someone to find a community, but now you can just ask AI the questions that you have, and it's okay if it's dumb, right? Like you're not going to get judged. And so going into it deep, like if I go to Bolt, right, and I have an idea, I'm like, okay, let's see what we can do with this. And just asking it the questions, right, and build this thing. For me, when I first loaded up Bolt for the first time, I wanted to see if it could build like a login, right, like just a quick like login page. Kind of similar to like if you ever take a coding course, they always ask you, oh, build this to-do app, right? Like that's like a first thing that they always teach you. So like here, I was like, okay, there's like, see if it could build a login. It did. And I was like, okay, what else can it do? Right. But going really deep and not being afraid to mess up, not being afraid to fail, and not being afraid to be seen, quote unquote, as, you know, ignorant to the tool that you're being built, because everyone starts from somewhere. You're always going to be a beginner at first. And then because we have AI, you can accelerate that learning process. Before it might have taken you 6 months to learn something, where an AI can take a week because it's teaching you how to you know, do the certain things in an order, right? I love to be like, hey, what are the order of operations I need to get to the end result? And that can, you know, and then tell me step by step what I need to do to get to this thing. AI is like the best coach. And I think if you use AI and ask it the questions that you have, whether that's if you have an error or you just don't know how to connect something, or for example, like I didn't know what it was called, like a skeleton, when it has the like gray little boxes when things are loading. I'm like, I don't know what that is. Let me ask AI. AI literally told me. But like stuff like that, it's just like you can learn really quickly if you know the questions to ask. And even giving it images, for example, that's something I love to do. Is like if I see an example of a thing I want to copy or, you know, make a version of, I just take an image and be like, hey, how do I do this? right? Or like, what's the process to complete this? So I think utilizing AI in that way to learn is very powerful in the era that we're in.
I think you're dead right. I mean, I think that's to me like one of the, I mean, and just to like zoom out of like, I guess not even in just the, talking about like Bolt or even like building web app sense, but I mean, this is, like the first company I actually tried to do is like a K-12 education company because, it just, I wanted to make it, more accessible for people to learn anything, right? And like, I mean, what's going on with LLMs is the end game of that sort of,
Absolutely.
What can be done here.
Yeah.
And I think, so I think just, triple underscore what you're saying. And I think I appreciate kind of laying out how you've approached it, right? Because obviously, like a lot of the people on our side here are developers, so we're very, did really deep in kind of how all this stuff works or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's I relate to what you're saying because like I take a similar approach when I'm going and poking and prodding on even a lot of the stuff that Bolt is spitting out. Like I haven't written that specific framework or component library or whatever, and it's actually really important. I think that's like a common failure mode that we're seeing is folks will kind of come to Bolt or similar tools and just kind of assume they can just kind of like ask it to do whatever, it'll just figure it out. And maybe these LLMs get to the point, right, where it'll kind of continue lowering the bar of what you have to know. But certainly at this point, I think for the foreseeable, it's like get kind of digging in and like getting a general understanding of some of the high level concepts you can best instruct,
Exactly.
It's really important, right?
Exactly.
So it's one of these things, I guess, like any tool, if you try to use Photoshop without ever having done a Photoshop tutorial, you wouldn't get far. I know, because that's how I tried to learn how to use Photoshop, and I was like, this is terrible. Like back 15 years ago or whenever I learned how to use it.
Yeah.
But, that's sick, man. Okay, so I'm curious to hear the story of the story of the micro app you built and sold, and just kind of walk us through that, because I want to hear it kind of from your perspective, and just what was the thing you built, and also how did you find a buyer for the thing? I don't know, just kind of 0 to 60. Like how did you do it? A lot of other people are interested in doing similar, but
yeah. So just to kind of hone in on one of the points you just made, like you guys are all developers, right? And I'm coming in and be like, hey, like use AI to build stuff. I do think there's a lot of components to AI to like building things that as a newbie or like as someone who's just beginning, you probably are going to not struggle. Well, yeah, you're probably going to struggle. There's like a lot of components. That's why I don't believe like AI agents are going to completely, take over software development, just because there's so many different things that have to happen between like hosting and API routes and just like there's just so many things. Like, and I have a friend who's teaching me a lot of this stuff as well. Even though I know it, it's just like connecting the dots, right? But I think that if you're able to build these micro apps, which is how I'm kind of defining it, I'm not building software. Like software, there's so many different components, right? I'm building micro apps that do one specific thing really well. And the reason that I was able to even sell this app that I built is because, like I said, I had a background before Bolt where I was building these automations, these marketing automations. And one of the automations that I built was, for me personally, was basically for my social media. I had Hagen to create AI avatars. So I automated that process so I didn't ever have to be on a camera again, because filming content and shorts takes a lot of time. So essentially I use Zapier, Airtable, Hagen API to automate that process out. So essentially I use ChatGPT to write a script. The script gets sent into Airtable. As soon as that script hits Airtable, it's automated and it basically makes the video for me, right? So I showed this particular thing that I made for myself to someone at a mastermind that I was at. And they're like, hey, that's super cool. Let's stay in touch. I obviously stayed in touch with the person. He's like, hey, like, do you think you could build an app that does like this thing? The thing that he wanted it to do was basically take a Instagram or TikTok URL, transcribe it, and then rewrite the video in a new like style, right? Very simple in theory. And I was like, yeah, maybe I can do an Airtable and like I can make all this complex automation. And then that's literally around the time that I had this conversation is when I saw Bolt. And I was like, oh, wait, like if I can do this inside of Bolt, that would be sick. And originally what I wanted to do was use Fastion, which is a no-code API builder. And Fastion, FYI, they just announced that they're going out of business. So I couldn't get it to work, and maybe it was just because they're downsizing or whatever. I just couldn't get it to work. So I was like, okay, what if I did Make and just use a webhook from Make to make this API call to a service called Fast Saver API, which is essentially allows you to download videos. And then it worked, and I was like, holy crap, like this is really cool. And then from there, I just continue building and asking it step by step, like chunks, so chunk size questions, and saying like, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? And eventually I got it to work. I could actually, I'll show you a V1 of the app too. I can share.
Yeah, that'd be sick. I'd be so curious to see it.
Yeah, so totally built in Bolt, and then I just got the API to work, and then yeah, I just literally showed the guy. I'm like, hey, like, you know, I built this in like 3 days. Like, is this what you were looking for? And he's like, yeah, this is super sick. And then I was like, hey, like this is gonna cost $3K, and like $3K, and like a lot of people in the original tweet were like, dude, you could have charged more for that. Like, why did you charge $3K? So the thought process behind the $3K number is, one, it's an easy sell. So I'm not necessarily looking for the like maximum dollar amount because the idea is very novel, right? Like prior to this, no one has done what I did, right? And that makes for good content. And that also just makes for a good story too. But it's a real story, like this really happened. And because it's a novel idea and because it's novel and no one has done it, it just allows me to be positioned as someone who's like, oh, like they're thinking ahead, like they're thinking on a different level, which is why I'm on this live stream right now. So it's not always about the maximum dollar amount that you can get. Sometimes it's just about the easy sell. And once you have that easy sell, it's replicating that. Or like now I know I did it once, I can definitely do it multiple times, and I'm going to. So that's kind of like the story behind it. And I can show you the.
Yeah, would love to see it. And also what you're pointing out there, by the way, like for anyone that's like thinking of, starting any type of business, especially like when you're kind of like heck, if you're selling a product or you're selling services, et cetera, it's always a good strategy to sell it once and give the your first customers a really good price. That's just an obvious yes, because once you sell it one time, then you have the confidence and a referenceable customer then to go and sell it, to go and build and sell more things to more folks, right?
Exactly.
So I think that was a really smart idea on your behalf. And I think like 3K in 3 days. I mean, I don't know how much money other people are making, but I mean, I'd take that deal. Like,
nice.
like that's a solid amount of money. I mean, for the amount of time you invested. So,
and the thing is, like, at that point, you can also upsell, right? Like, you can be like, hey, like, there's a management fee involved, or I will add X amount of features, because like at that point, they might want to add more things. Like, he was already asking me to add more stuff, which is fine, right? Like, if he wants to do that, then I can just charge more or not. It's fine, whatever. Either way, but like you said, it's important to get that first sale to boost the confidence, but also validate that there's something here. Totally. For sure. So watch me show this and the demo doesn't work.
Okay, we have a demo later that hopefully will also work, but I'm in the same nervousness camp as you.
Well, to be fair, I did offload this into a client's account, so I haven't really touched this, but you can kind of see it.
Totally.
Okay, so I'm gonna share my entire screen here. I think you guys might have to
go ahead and pull you up. Okay. Oh yeah, look at that.
There you go. Okay, so this is basically the app. So this is using Chatzian, and I know you guys recommend that you don't, but at the time I was like, I like this. I like the UI.
Yeah.
And it worked out pretty well for me. So I mean, I couldn't complain. So before you guys, prior to this, you guys didn't have the Supabase integration. So what I did was I had to basically ask Bolt to create the SQL queries, and then it would create that for us. And somewhere in here it has the migrations for it. Yeah, here. So like you can see, like it literally created the SQL query so that I would be able to save the data that I was entering here. And then eventually I also added autosave. So which was cool about this app was I just told Bolt like, hey, like, can you just add autosave functionality? And it did it. So anyway, so this is like the app. So again, this is one use case. It's not a software. It's a micro app that is going to accompany this client's service. So whatever that service is, right? And they'll be able to not only utilize the service, but then be like, hey, client Y, like, you know, you can use this to do whatever you want. And it's included in the thing that I'm selling, which I think is very like a distinct difference of like, hey, I'm building a SaaS. No, like I'm building a micro app that's going to, it could turn into a software eventually, but it just starts off as one thing. So the one thing is, okay, I'm going to insert a TikTok or Instagram URL here. I'm going to click continue. And then you can either input some information here. There's a prompt template as well. So like, actually, if I go in here, you can kind of see, I got it here.
This is really sick, by the way. I mean, this is like a, you know, like maybe like micro app, quote unquote. I mean, this is really well done. I mean, this is pretty sophisticated.
Thank you. And I think a lot of it is like what you were saying before, is like chunking it, right? Like starting on one thing. Like for me, I started on the login, right? So like if I log out, like this was my login. And then I was like, okay, that worked. Apply the same style to the other pages, right? And then after that, I was like, okay, I want a navigation. I want the navigation to have these things. So anyway, so yeah, so like now this is all saved to Supabase database. And then we have some styles here. We have accounts pulling in data from the Supabase authentication. And this all works. Like I can change the password and update email, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, so you can add the Instagram URL here, click continue. You can do manual or use templates. So in this case, like this is the specific prompt, and then this is the style. So like the style meaning this is who I'm trying to talk to. And after that, I just really like pressing generate scripts. And then what happens is it's calling the webhook inside of make.com and then just pushing back the data into here once that 200 request comes through. But again, like I'm not a developer in the traditional sense, but I knew what I wanted the outcome to be. And I think that's important, is understanding the outcomes and then figuring out like, okay, what needs to happen in order for that outcome to be successful. And then if you take it like chunk by chunk, you'll be able to, you know, figure that out. So yeah, just like, I don't know, adding these little things like here where it's changing the title, right? Telling Bolt like, hey, like I want you to every 5 seconds change the thing so the user knows something is happening. But I think talking to it and like figuring out what you want done is you know, the most important thing is figuring out what you want done. And to do that, you can either do UI in Figma, right? I for one of the apps I'm building right now, which I can't show right now, but I built all the pages in Figma, right? And then that makes it even easier to understand, like to conceptualize what you need Bolt to do. And then also you can feed it screenshots to, so here we go. We got the result here. So like, this is like the versions of the script that they can now copy. And then also if they wanted to generate, whoa, what just happened? If they want to generate new versions, they can do that. And then it will just rerun it.
Wow.
But then this autosave. So if I go to all rewrites, it should autosave.
Wow. This is crazy, man.
Yeah, I mean, Bolt's sick. What can I say? You know.
Yeah, but I mean, this is like masterful what you did. I mean, this is really. I mean, this is an incredibly useful tool. And so for the back end portion of this, like I think you had mentioned using a tool called Make. You were saying. So. Mm-hmm. Do you walk me through that? Like how, like, yeah, just kind of how, like, what external services are you using here to kind of do other portions of this?
Yeah, so Bolt front end, Make, yeah, this is it basically. So like when I press the button to like generate the script, it's just calling this webhook, and it just routes it based off if it's TikTok or Instagram, and then based off the URL. So like when you enter the URL here, it actually tells, like Bolt will tell it will send the data in to Make, like, okay, this was a TikTok, this was Instagram, whatever. And then it just runs the calls, right? So it's making requests, and then after Anthropic Claude makes the script, it just sends it back into the text back into Bolt.
Wow.
But yeah, like I think like this is pretty revolutionary because you can build these ideas really quickly. And of course, like I said, excuse me, if you wanted to take this to the next level, then you might want to use, Next.js API routes or whatever else. But for like a quick V1 MVP, you can use something like Make or Zapier, what is it called? N8N. I haven't used that one, but a lot of people recommend that one. But really, it's like building these like V1s, and most, and I know Eric, you probably know too, is like most SaaS starts off with like one feature, like one thing that it does, and then you kind of iterate based off customer feedback, and take it step by step. And I think that's what Bolt allows you to do, is take it step by step, figure out the one core thing, and start with the micro app, see if there's validation there for users, and then you can expand upon it, either in Bolt or self-host or whatever you want to do. Like, yeah, so like we will, or I will go into Figma and just like map out what this will look like. So obviously, like, this was an app that I built for this was built not in Bolt, but the premise is the same, right? Like, you want to build out the pages and figure out, okay, what would a V1 actually look like, and also how quickly can I get that V1 out? So like really mapping it out. And I use something called Stratus. I forget what it's like, Stratus UI or something. Oh yeah, here it is. So Stratus UI. And it's basically just a UI kit, but that really helps me just copy and paste, so I can quickly create these I don't even know what it's called, what these are called, right? Like, that's how far removed I am from being a software developer. But you get what I'm saying. Like, the page is required for the app, the UI. Then you could also do something like Acceleradraw, which is something that I have a friend who does it through there. It's like building out all the V1s of the pages before going to Figma. But I have found that if you, for example, give it a screenshot of something like this, and then be like, hey, Bolt, like, I want it to look like this, it's going to do a pretty good job because you had that screenshot, versus just like, hey, like, build a navigation that's on the left side, where you can say, hey, build a navigation that resembles this UI. It has this many, units or whatever, and then it will do it. That's what I found, at least. I think adding images is very helpful for Bolt to understand the context required to to build that app.
Totally.
But yeah, man, I mean, really, it's just like, okay, what do I want to build? Can I build a UI really quickly in Figma or Acceleradraw, and then hop into Bolt, and then kind of just build out the V1? And like, I want to preface, like, I'm not, Bolt has been around for what? You said this is like the ninth week, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want to be like, I'm like, master bolter here. But I will say, like I said earlier, I spend a lot of hours in apps, especially when I'm interested in something. And I will go deep, right? Which kind of, they say you need 100 hours to be like masterful at something, right? So you spend 8 hours a day, and 2 months, you're going to be pretty good at something. So, and obviously there's people building, like today I saw the 3D editor that was being built. Like, that's insane. But yeah, I think pushing the limits of what this tool can do is going to be really, it's going to transform a lot of people's lives, because a lot of people or have a lot of ideas. They just don't know how to get it out. And Bolt is allowing people like me to get those ideas out in a very quickly. So kudos to you guys and the team.
But back at you, I mean, you are absolutely in like the top, users of the. I mean, you know how to use Bolt better than our core team probably does, right? I mean, like, just kind of from what you've shown here. I mean, that's it's nuts what you've done, and I think so. There's a couple of comments in the chat. Actually, I just want to rewind and kind of pull some of these up. But yeah, I think basically, like, I think the approach that you're talking about, like kind of chunking out the work. Definitely. I mean, I think that's a common failure mode, is like, if you go and like say, oh, go do a whole bunch of different things. It's like telling a human, to, hey, go do the dishes and get groceries and this. It's going to do like 10% of each of those.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So that's it.
Jay, I'm curious, how much time are you planning? Like, what's the ratio of like planning, like Figma time and like thinking through this stuff versus like actually typing in Bolt, would you say?
Yeah, to be honest, like for the YouTube tutorials, I'll just type like so for the YouTube tutorials that I do, the only thing I script is the intro and the outro. Like everything in between, I have no idea what's going to happen. Which is kind of like living life on the edge, but I enjoy it because I can really push to see, okay, what is this app capable of? But like if I'm taking it pretty seriously, like the app that I eventually I'll show it. But like that had a whole like UI, like the whole UI took like 2 weeks to build. And I was very critical and specific on like what happens if you click this button and this happens, which obviously helps with building inside of Bolt or any other AI tool. It just depends on the project that I'm building. For the tool that I showed, like the Agile Copilot, which again, that's not the name. My buddy kind of took a lot of time to think about it. He's a software developer by trade. So also like B2B enterprise, so like the whole different level. So for him, it's like very critical that he spends time not only pre-planning, but really thinking critically on every aspect of the app, from the front end, back end security, just everything in between, which I'm also learning a lot from him as well. So my friend Ted, he's an awesome guy. But yeah, I think if it's just like playing around, I won't really pre-plan that much. But if I'm taking the time to really develop an app that I think I want to push, then yeah. And one thing I didn't tell you guys earlier is I had a software company that I kind of gave the reins to someone else to kind of operate as far from a development standpoint. And I never really told this story anywhere, so you guys are kind of getting the juicy details. But I had a software company called Cart Fuel, and I didn't know how to code. I got it off the ground because I hired people from Upwork and had developers who I trusted. So they were doing pretty good, but they only took the app to so far, right? And I needed it to go further. We had about 2K MRR, and there was a lot of possibility for scalability as long as I got the app to have a better infrastructure. That was about, I think, maybe 2 years ago or 3 years ago. Anyway, so this year, 2024, I brought in some technical co-founders, and unfortunately, things didn't go the way I planned. And they saw the company one way, I saw the company the other way, and they felt as if I wasn't putting enough effort and time into the application. So essentially, they deleted all the code and deleted the backups too. So I was kind of screwed. And I had like the V1 of the app, but I had 2K MRR. People were using it. Like it was sucky. And the reason why I'm telling this story is Bolt and the tools like Bolt allow people to take control of the things and the ideas that they have. And for me, that's really important, to have the ownership of those tools. And because AI is a great teacher and I can learn really quickly, I have more power, right? And I have more power to really control the destiny of the things that I think are going to be big. Just a quick side note there, because I think it's important to know that that's one thing that Bolt is allowing people to do, is have that ownership.
Well, one, I'm sorry to hear that happen, man. Because it's sadly it's a common thing that can happen, right? And like it's a really good point, because that's primarily the reason I learned to code is if you're building products and businesses and stuff from the ground up, it's a huge advantage to be able to directly contribute and understand all the different layers of how the thing works. Because the problem is it's kind of a weird relationship otherwise if you're relying on other people to do own critical things of how this is going to work. And that's for like my job as the CEO of Stackblitz over the years, I've had to kind of the approach that I've taken. And I think you talk to a lot of startup founders. The job of the founding, the co-founders or whatever, and certainly the whoever's in the CEO seat is to go and become a domain expert in a lot of different things as the company's growing. So like at the beginning, might be development, design, product. Then that might become marketing, and then that might become sales, how do you do enterprise sales? And so that's, it's like, but the problem is if you don't do that and you're like, oh, I'm just going to hire someone. It's like, how do you even hire someone? to do a function that you don't actually like. How do you find the best people and then also be able to really effectively connect the dots on stuff? And doesn't mean you have to like be like you don't actually. The other failure mode is people just like fall in love with a specific part of that job and they don't actually punch back out. So it's kind of this like balancing act of
Absolutely
proficient enough to get it and dangerously good at it or whatever. But then to the degree where you can bring on great people and you can have productive conversations like, hey, here's how we can better architect the app, or here's how we can close this deal or whatever, right? But it's amazing to hear that Bolt's been able to actually augment your ability to do that. That's incredible.
Totally has 100%.
Oh yeah. Another comment I wanted to pull up here. Let me see if I can find it. There's something Mauricio said. This is like something like this kind of came to my mind too while you were talking about this. Like, it makes a ton of sense. Like, there's like these, for different folks like running businesses or whatever have you, like the micro app you sold, the person you sold to, presumably they have like a business use case, right, of why they need that tool.
100%.
And, it's like, it's just kind of like that kind of, honestly, just kind of like from seeing the tweet, I was like, that's super cool, right, that you did that. And then, but kind of understanding the problem that you're actually solving there and like why this person bought it, I mean, it kind of blows my mind because I'm just like, there's millions of these things probably out there that,
for him, it's more about ownership, right? Like it's more about, hey, like I own this tool and I'm going to give it to you, a part of my service, versus like, hey, go to this website and then sign up and then pay them the money, right? You already paid me the money. Yep. So I'm going to give you this tool as a value add. And that's the key difference, right? Like, yeah, you could find tools that do this potentially, right? I think in our database, we have 13,000 AI tools, right? And not all of them are good, but I'm sure there's probably one that does something very similar. But for him, it's about ownership and saying like, hey, this is mine. This is something that I'm going to give you as a value add to the thing that you already bought.
Oh, wow. That's so interesting. So it's, wow. Okay. So just to make sure I understand, basically like he's running a business or a service and this is like part of the value prop of what he's providing to his customers.
Correct.
Wow. Yeah. That's crazy. That's like that. I mean, it makes sense. Though,
that's what like people don't get. Like on the tweet, there are so many people saying like, dude, like this doesn't even make sense. You're lying. It's like, yeah, it's a whole different thought process, right? Like you only think about it from one way, but like business owners see it as like, okay, I can like own this and build it out if I wanted to, give it as a value add, which makes it easier for my customers to say yes to me, which makes it easier for me to acquire customers so I can upsell those customers, get them in my, like there's just so much that you can do with micro apps, in my opinion, that just doesn't coincide with how normal, I don't want to say normal, but like how everyday people think about like why someone would buy a $3,000 app.
Yeah. It's an entirely new market, I think, I don't think, this is kind of the first time, in history, I think, where you could actually do this and build like this very bespoke software.
Correct.
In a way that's you can be incredibly prolific because before the cost to build like something that you made, I mean, you're talking, the development cost would be more than what you sold the thing for.
Exactly. Right? And I think Neil Patel I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's like a big prolific person in like the SEO industry and marketing industry. And he just released something where it said like the ROI of like the return on value of the initiatives that you do in marketing, right? And then, there's like webinars, there's like newsletters, there's white papers, there's all these things. And the number one thing on that list on like on a number to number basis, tools. Like that's like if you look at Neil Patel's business, he has like Uber Suggest. He like owns all these like SEO tools, right? And he uses those tools and he gives them most of the time away for free to acquire those customers, and then he sells them services, right? That's the highest ROI. That is so interesting to me, and I just think there's so much possibility there. And I have so many ideas that I will bring to market, and you guys will see them. But yeah, like you said, it's a whole different shift of like how you were able to not only build, and basically I spent $20, right? Like Bolt was $20, whatever I paid for at the time to build this app that made me 3K, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, from my perspective, that's a high ROI, and then for his perspective, who I sold it to, you know, he sees it like, hey, I'm going to give this as a value add, so it works out.
Love it. And yeah, we've got some more comments coming in here on this. So some confirmation. Jay, what you're saying makes sense. If you think you're crazy, you're not. Although you have the hard-earned cash in hand. And by the way, when you posted that tweet, I saw people be like, "You're lying," and it was hilarious. You came with the receipt, and I'd be like, "Here's like the payment
dude,
receipt."
I don't know what else I could do. I can't give you access to my bank account. Like, you know, I guess it's the best I could do for you.
Yeah, Jay, yeah. Listen, here's my crypto wallet. If you prove it, send me $3,000 of Bitcoin, and then I'll believe you. Okay.
Dude, you know what's so crazy? This is not necessarily about Bolt, but I had someone send me 2K of crypto to go to Portugal. Craziest story I've ever, like, literally I have receipts in Discord. This guy's like a crypto millionaire. And he was like, yeah, like there's a Bitcoin event. Who wants to go? And the one guy was like, oh, I would love to go, but I can't. And I was like, I'll go. He literally sent me 2K and he made an NFT of the freaking flight. He's like, don't scam me, just go to Portugal and
Wait, you made an NFT of your flight itinerary?
I swear to you, I can pull up the Discord right now and show you. Craziest thing that ever happened to me. Dude, my family thought I was getting abducted. I literally took a flight from Newark, New Jersey to Portugal, and I spent a week out there.
You went? Oh, you actually you took
Hell
the flight?
Yeah, wait, what do you
mean? Oh my God. Okay. I get it. I'd be concerned if I was your family. I'd be like,
so it happens. I'm just saying, someone can send you money, and it could be crypto, and then Anyway,
that's unbelievable.
Crazy story, I know. Again, people are gonna call me a liar here, but what do you
want? Unreal.
You should tell some of these stories while you build with Bolt.
So I am going to do a I don't know when, I think in the new year, I'm going to do a 25-hour video. And I'm making it public so I can hold my feet to the fire and do it. But it's going to be like a 25-hour video showing you from scratch, and then see how far we can take it. So it should be pretty sick. But I don't know when I'm going to do it. But yes, I can tell stories during that for sure.
Hell yeah. I love it. It's like 25 hours consecutive where you're just all pulling.
I don't know how I'm going to do it yet. I might have to wear a diaper if I do 25 hours consecutive, just like sitting at my laptop. No, I might split it out, to be honest with you. But yeah.
Yeah, I would hope. I mean, we'll sponsor you with some Red Bull.
Please. I would love that.
Okay, so Yogesh asked, do you do user research to find target users typically?
I can only speak to how I like I said, I had a software before, and what I did for that is it was actually an app on HubSpot Marketplace. So what I did was I found apps on the HubSpot Marketplace, and this can be relative to what today, you can use the same strategy. So I'll tell you. So I went to HubSpot Marketplace, found an app, and I was like, I have the same problem. And there was only one other app on the marketplace at the time on HubSpot. So I was like, oh, let's build it. So that's how it started. But then I would look at the negative reviews of that product, right? And this is something that people do in e-commerce all the time, is they look at the negative reviews and they're like, oh, how can I make this better? I'll just add this thing that customers are complaining about. Easy. So I did that. And then what I did was I looked at all the reviews of this product, found the images of each of the people that left the review, reversed image search, found their LinkedIn, found their email, emailed them, and said, hey, I know you use this product. I'm building a competitor that has XYZ features that are better than what you built. And I got 100 people signing up before I even built the product. And that was that I built a wait list essentially. And not everyone converted, right? I probably got 5 people from that list, but that's 5 customers that you didn't have prior who are testing out your app, validating if the idea is even good, and potentially giving you money to then, continue building. So that's one way to do it, is just looking at the negative reviews to see if there's anything that you can build that is better than what's already out there. You can also use a tool called Gummy Search, which is a great tool. that you can just search Reddit essentially on all the negative things that are happening for a product or an industry, and then you can take that information and then use it to build products.
Yeah, love it. And for the second bit, I'm curious if you have thoughts on this, Jay, but the strategy I've always taken for investors, especially if you're like an introvert, if you have great numbers, it doesn't matter. I mean,
Exactly.
like you don't need insane salesmanship, and not that you shouldn't work on it, but it's like, go build something awesome that people love and are paying money for or whatever. And, any smart investor is going to look at the numbers and be like, I'm in,
No, totally. Yeah. One of my business partners sold his company on another venture that we did that kind of fizzled out, but he sold his company for like 400 million or something, but he was investing.
Wow.
Like he went in the investing route, and he built another AI app, called athlete.ai, but he got investment from Amazon. And I asked him, like, how do you invest? He's like, one, it's just a matter, it's about stories, right? It's the story that you can tell, and that can be from your numbers or future pacing on what the app you think will do or the product that it will do. But a lot of it comes from what, like you said, is like, investors care about one thing: how quickly they can get their money back. If the idea is not, if you didn't plan out the idea enough and you don't really have a clear vision or a clear story of how that's going to happen, you're not going to find investors. So you have to have a good story on how they can make their money back. And then obviously, if you have the numbers that represent that story, it's just going to be easy. But it's just a matter of finding the right investors. Not every investor is a good investor for what you're building.
Totally. That's excellent advice. That's excellent advice. And it's kind of an interesting thing where it's like, when you go and raise money, what you said about finding the right investor is just so true. Because even if you have great numbers or this or that, and it's just, some people just won't see the vision, right? For because they're coming from different walks of life or whatever, and that's like fine. So definitely don't get discouraged, folks, if you're raising money and people are saying no. I mean, that is literally just part of the process. I mean, I think what you said there around, I think it's telling a great story is important, and I think just having actual proof in the pudding to back it up just adds credibility, right? Because it's really hard to just like pitch a dream, if you don't have stuff backing it up. And most of the time, it's just you can go and build something, improve traction, improve revenue, even in a small way. And I think it's kind of a good proof of work function too, because it's like, if it's true that there's a business opportunity here, surely we could build even a fraction of what we want to build and prove that it is commercially viable, and time is the most valuable thing anyone's got. So it's like, if you're going to go spend a whole, years, once you take investment money, you're spending years working on that thing.
100%.
It's like, before you lock into that, it's like, at least to yourself, you got to prove, is this it? Like,
exactly. And honestly, to that point, I think with tools like Bolt, there's going to be a world where you don't necessarily need investors. Like, all you need is an audience. So I would also say, to build an audience, whether that's on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, or X, like, building that audience is critical. And a lot of companies right now, from a marketing perspective, there's a shift happening where companies are going media first, right? Where they have newsletters, or they have like a podcast, right? That's why HubSpot's buying all these podcasts and all these newsletters. Why? Because they know that they can get in front of an audience virtually for nothing. But if you have an audience that you own, right, whether that's an email list or, like I said, YouTube, TikTok, whatever, it's going to be easier for you to be like, hey, like, I have this product. Hey, I'm looking for beta testers, 10 people. Can you try this out? And, maybe those 10 people really like what you're building. And then that gives you the validation to keep going. And, you don't need an investor. I think the ability to fail fast and then test fast is critical, especially as these programs or as these tools get better. It's going to be audience. Like, you have to have an audience.
Yep. No, I so agree. I mean, we need to like have another session we do here where we just talk about how to start businesses and stuff. Because a lot of the questions in the chat, I mean, I'm delightfully surprised. Like, there's a lot of questions coming in about folks that are, trying to figure out how to start a business here, and like, whether they should raise money or not, et cetera. So if you'd be up for it, I think it'd be fun to do another session here.
I could talk about this all day. I would love to come back on.
Same, man. Hell, this is I'm having fun. This is sick. And also a lot of people, in our company Slack and in the chat here, are saying Jay is amazing, and I gotta tell you, I cannot agree more. Like you like your knowledge across everything we've talked about here is incredible. I've enjoyed the heck out of chat with you, but I mean, I'd love to chat, even longer. And I also want to mention, Jay's got a YouTube channel, and highly recommend going and following it. Maybe we can get the link up on the screen here to it.
Appreciate it.
But, yeah, I mean, you appreciate all the help you've been giving to the community and like sharing your knowledge here and what you put on your YouTube channel. I mean, it's just incredibly high quality stuff. So there's the link. You can go subscribe, follow, like Jay's videos.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll have definitely more content coming soon. I just moved to a new place, but yeah, we'll have like 1 or 2 videos a week coming very soon.
Amazing. Hell yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, any other questions from the StackBlitz side, by the way, because we want to show a new integration and some community shout outs before we drop here.
No more questions, but just want to add a +1 to, we should definitely have you back on. And that actually kind of gave me an idea. We've got our user spotlights. I like, he got the mug. That's awesome. Hey, is that the Bolt is my co-founder one?
It is. I wish I could. My camera's over there, but yeah, that is the Bolt is my co-founder.
Let's go.
I'm eagerly awaiting. That's my favorite one that Mauricio put together too. So I'm excited for that one. But yeah, maybe we even have, we've got our Thursday user spotlights and we've got the office hours. I could imagine having even another series that's more focused on like the business of using tools like Bolt, and building a business around that. It could be interesting to have little, like entrepreneur chats. Just an idea that I kind of had from this, but
I think it makes sense. I mean, because I think, you kind of look at, people that come in, and this is the, there's a book, I think it's called like, making your users badass or something like that. I can't remember. Hey, it's a great book. But kind of the key takeaway from it is like folks that come and use your product, it's not about like, people don't buy a DSLR, to just because they're buying a DSLR, they're doing it because they want to take photos, right, of something. And so the question is, how can you kind of tune your products, but also the experiences around them to help them actually accomplish what they're trying to do? And with Bolt, we see an incredible number of entrepreneurs using this, and people trying to build businesses. So I think it'd be sick to get some live streams going on that. So hell yeah.